Hello, everybody, and welcome to Week 5 predictions. Last week lit a little bit better for me, but still not good enough for me to fully want to talk about it. Before we dive right into these, I want to quickly say subscribe if you're new, be greatly appreciated. Wednesday night Q&As every single Wednesday. Live play-by-plays all NFL season long and beyond into the UFL and even some NBA stuff as well. Yeah, subscribe if you're new, greatly appreciated, and leave a like while you're at it as well. So let's dive right into this with Thursday night football. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers sit at 3-1 as they head to Atlanta as underdogs. The Falcons at 2-2 are favored by 1.5 in this one. And for as much as I like that the Falcons are starting to look more like a complete team, like I said before the season started, I expected it was going to take a few weeks for them to build that chemistry, and it has, and they are building that chemistry. I still think the Buccaneers are just the more complete team. They looked a lot better last week than they did 2 weeks ago. They bounced back really well. They are playing some really solid football. Baker Mayfield's doing his job really nicely. Mike Evans still being as reliable as ever. And that defense is still playing incredibly well. So yeah, I do have Tampa winning this one. The Sunday slate of games kicks off with a little bit of action from across the pond as the New York Jets at 2-2 and the Minnesota Vikings, who are one of two 4-0 teams left in this one, travel to London to play their Week 5 matchup. The Vikings are 2.5 point favorites and, in my opinion, are the best team in the NFL at this moment. Their defense is playing some of the best football we have seen, is incredible. Sam Darnold is playing some of the best football of his career, and everything is working on all cylinders. Yes, there was that hiccup in the second half against Green Bay, but they didn't let it get to them. They turned it on and flipped the script late in the fourth to hang on and win that one. Meanwhile, the Jets are coming off of a 10-9 loss to the Denver Broncos, of which the defense played pretty well, but the offense could get absolutely nothing going. And now Aaron Rodgers himself is saying that his knee is feeling swollen and is bothering him a bit. Definitely something to keep an eye on, and is probably going to have an impact in this one. The Jets are there's just a mess right now. They have not played consistently this season. They have their moments of playing really well, like against the Patriots, and then they have games like last week against the Broncos. So yeah, I have Minnesota continuing their undefeated season in this one. All right, next up, the Cleveland Browns at 1-3 are traveling to a surprisingly 3-1 team, the Washington Commanders. Commanders are 3.5 point favorites in this one, and yeah, Jaden Daniels is the clear front runner for Offensive Rookie of the Year, playing some of the best football we have seen from a rookie with a staggering 82% completion percentage. He is throwing the ball well, he is running the ball well himself, he's doing fine under the pressure that comes his way in some games. And the defense is playing decently well. Obviously, you want a bit more, but they showed that bit more last week against Arizona. Meanwhile, Cleveland is still looking like Cleveland. Deshaun Watson is basically nowhere to be found, with being a complete waste of money, it seems, at this point. And yeah, he did have a long touchdown pass to Amari Cooper called back due to a kind of phantom holding. But still, besides, you can't have all your best plays when just penalties thrown, even warranted or not. Cleveland's just a weird team. They're not playing kind of how I expected them to play this season, and weirdly enough, are somehow playing worse than they have in the past with Deshaun Watson. Meanwhile, again, Washington is playing some fantastic football. I do have Washington winning this one. Number 4 is the Baltimore Ravens at 2-2, traveling to the 1-3 Cincinnati Bengals, a game of which Baltimore is favored by 2.5. Cincy got their first win last week in what was a kind of tightly contested game against the Carolina Panthers on the road. The offense played really well. The defense had their moments, but for the most part, they're still kind of lacking in some areas. They put up 34, gave up 24. And again, that game was a little bit close for comfort against Andy Dalton. Meanwhile, Baltimore is coming off of a complete smackdown over the Buffalo Bills on Sunday Night Football, a game of which was Baltimore's statement win, saying, hey, we have found ourselves, we have found our groove, and we are back. And because of it, and because of Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, still no sign of Mark Andrews, but it hasn't been that big of a factor yet. And a defense that's playing incredibly well. Give me the Baltimore Ravens in this one. What is most likely going to be game of the week this week as the Buffalo Bills at 3-1 travel to the Houston Texans, who are also 3-1. The Texans are 1-point favorites at the time of this recording. I would not be surprised by come game time. Line is different. And Buffalo was a terrible, terrible loss to Baltimore on Sunday Night Football. They just got completely owned and handled. Like, it was embarrassing for them, especially after how they played against Jacksonville and Miami the past 2 weeks. Houston, though, is coming off of a really bad loss to Minnesota that was followed up by a really tough win against Jacksonville. And Houston they're trying to find momentum, trying to find a rhythm, but really they haven't been able to yet this season. There's been a lot of really close games against teams where it should not have been that close. And then again, you have that blowout loss to Minnesota. Meanwhile, Buffalo has been able to handle business for the most part against teams they should be able to. Again, a win against Arizona, Miami, and Jacksonville. This is going to be a really interesting game, probably another really tight finish for both of these teams. I do have Buffalo winning. I trust Josh Allen more than I do Houston at the moment, so yeah, give me Buffalo. Next up, the 1-3 Carolina Panthers make the trip to the Windy City as they play the Chicago Bears, who are 2-2 and also 4-point favorites in this one. Chicago is a weird team this season. They've had their moments of looking okay. They've had their moments of looking complete disasters. Meanwhile, the Panthers are starting to find a little bit of a rhythm again. Andy Dalton played well last week, and especially in 2 weeks ago, he played phenomenally against Vegas. Chicago is a weird team, though. They have a pretty decent defense with an offense that can play up to the level at some points, but again, just inconsistent. Carolina's defense did not do that great of a job against Cincinnati like they did against Vegas. Neither did the offense. It's just both teams are really indecisive and really confusing at the moment, so this is a tough one to pick. I am going with Chicago, though. I feel like they're closer to finding that rhythm that they have. That was a good game against the Rams they had last week. I think they're going to be able to ride off of it and continue their success. So yeah, give me Chicago. The Indiana Colts are 2-2, riding a 2-game win streak into Jacksonville to play the 0-4 Jaguars. And at this very moment of recording, the Jaguars are 3-point favorites. I feel like part of that is the uncertainty surrounding both Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson. But even if it is Joe Flacco getting the start for the Colts, he played well enough against Pittsburgh last week on a moment's notice. To be fair, he is really used to that Pittsburgh defense due to his time in both Cleveland and Baltimore. Meanwhile, Jacksonville, a tough loss again, and really, who knows what they're looking like this season. Doug Peterson's press conference in the following the game, don't remember if it was the exact immediately after or the day after. It was not a good press conference either way. Him basically blaming the players for what's going on was not good. I feel like he's starting to lose the locker room, and especially because of that. That's probably going to be happening very shortly, especially if they lose any more games in this quick succession. And yeah, the Colts, even though it was a tough win, their defense played okay in the first half. The offense eventually found a rhythm with Joe Flacco behind center. I think they're going to keep that up and give me the Indianapolis Colts. There's not a whole lot to talk about for this next game as my Miami Dolphins are traveling to the New England Patriots. Both teams at 1-3. The Patriots are a 1-point favorite at the moment. And we'll begin with the Patriots. They are a team that people kind of expected to not look the greatest this season. They are testing out the offensive line, letting the receivers get a groove into the system and kind of develop their skills, and all the while looking towards next season to be the year they start to truly see what they have. Drake May not playing yet this season. We'll see if he does get playing time later on this season. But as of right now, it is the Jacoby Brissett show. Again, the expectations weren't that high in New England. Meanwhile, Miami at 1-3 have a lot of pressure on them this week. Tyler Huntley expected to get the start again, and this is do or die time for the season. Again, a lot of high expectations beforehand have quickly turned into outrage by the fan base and turned into calling for firings. I do have Miami this one because I am a Dolphin fan, but I am not looking forward to watching this game, but I'm going to anyway. So yeah, there's that. Give me the Dolphins. Next up, the Arizona Cardinals at 1-3 make the trip to Santa Clara as they play the 2-2 49ers. The Niners are 7.5 point favorites in this one, and they have gotten a little bit healthier. Deebo Samuel was back last week, still waiting for CMC's return and his first action this season. He was in Germany the past week, figuring it out and trying to recover as quickly as possible. So we'll see on an update for that. I don't expect him to play this game. But San Francisco did play really well against New England last week. Fred Warner had a fantastic pick six. Their defense is still playing pretty well. The offense is finding the groove again. Though, to be fair, it was against the Patriots. Meanwhile, the Cardinals, they had that one really good game earlier in the season. I believe it was week 2. And besides that, it has been a kind of weird situation in Arizona. Did kind of expect more out of them. But I do still like kind of their style and how they're playing. That was a really tough loss to Washington last week. I wouldn't be completely shocked if they bounce back, but this is a tough opponent to use as a bounce back game. So give me the 49ers in this one. Next up, the Las Vegas Raiders at 2-2, coming off of a win against the Cleveland Browns, are traveling to a hot Denver Broncos team who are also 2-2, but are riding a 2-game win streak. The Broncos are favored by 3 in this one, and this is going to be a weird game. Listen, there's a lot going on in Vegas right now, as Davante Adams has said now that he would prefer to be traded. We'll see what comes with that, but as of right now, he's expected to play for Vegas this week. And their offense has looked okay. Gardner Minshew's doing a decent enough job, like I kind of expected. I do think they're in a better spot so far this season than if Aiden O'Connell would have played. The defense, though, is the disappointing part. I know there was no Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins last week, but you still want a little bit more out of this defense. Meanwhile, Denver's defense played really well in the past 2 weeks against both Tampa and New York. And now the offense's turn to really step up. They had that one really good game against Tampa. They played solidly against Seattle to begin this season, but last week was a disaster against the Jets. Bo Nix had 60 passing yards. Yeah, the rain was everywhere, but definitely would have liked to see more out of the offense, but it was against a really good Jets defense. Either way, I do have the Raiders winning this one. I think this is their chance to get the season back on track and really show that Davante Adams why he should stay in Vegas this season. The Green Bay Packers at 2-2 and also 3.5 point favorites are traveling to the 1-3 Los Angeles Rams. The Packers nearly a fantastic comeback against the Vikings last week, but the main thing to point out is that second half. They looked like the Packers again. Love got into a groove again. It took him a little bit because he, again, coming back from injury, it was going to take some time. It finally started clicking again. Same thing with the defense. Started playing well again. And really, they probably should have won that game if it wasn't for the first half missed field goals and interceptions, and really the whole Jordan Love trying to get back into a rhythm of playing football due to missing 2 weeks of due to injury. Meanwhile, the Rams are still injured themselves to high hell. There's a lot of people going to be missing for this game. I still do really like the Rams as a team. I think that this is just a lost season for them due to all of the injuries. But I do still feel like they're going to be able to put up a fight. Just not enough of a fight. Give me the Green Bay Packers to walk out of Los Angeles with a win. The 1-3 New York Giants are making the cross-country trip over to play the 3-1 Seattle Seahawks, a game of which the Seahawks are favored by 6.5. Seahawks coming off of a really tough loss to Detroit on Monday Night Football. It was a really good game nonetheless. They played decently well, just not well enough to get the win that week. Meanwhile, the Giants coming off of a loss to Dallas on Thursday Night Football, a game of which Daniel Jones is just not playing well in that game and in this season. He missed Malik Neighbors on what should have been a walk-in touchdown, but the throw was behind. And just in general, the Giants are not playing up to really the kind of level and the style of play that they should be playing up to. Meanwhile, again, the Seahawks are playing well, playing above the expectations I had for them this season. This is a home game for them in one of, if not the loudest stadiums in the NFL. This should be a pretty easy win for Seattle. So yeah, I do have Seattle winning. And it's going to be interesting to see how much longer Daniel Jones really has to prove himself in New York. Wrapping up the Sunday slate is Sunday Night Football with the Dallas Cowboys traveling to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Cowboys are 2-2. The Steelers are 3-1. The Steelers are also 2.5 point favorites in this one. And I don't know how to feel about either of these teams. the Cowboys had so much higher expectations going into the season, and they just have not met it on the field wise, besides in week one. The defense is playing okay. The offense is playing fine, I guess. But generally, there's just a weird team and a very tough team to really try to come up with something for. Dak is playing, I guess, the best. I don't know. It's just, there's just a weird team. I want to say more about them, but they're just not having, and they're just not being a very consistent team. So it's hard to really like predict them and how they're gonna play as a team. Meanwhile, the Steelers, they had their first loss of the season last week to the Colts. They were still playing their style, but it took a little bit to get it going against the Colts. Their defense has been a fantastic defensive unit this season. Last week was a tough one for them, giving up 27, but for the most part, they have barely given up 10 plus this year. The offense is doing enough. Justin Fields is still playing really well for what he's being asked to do. So, yeah, I do have this game is in Pittsburgh. I do have the Steelers winning this one. And finally, Monday Night Football. The 2-2 New Orleans Saints make the trip over to Kansas City, who are 4-0 and 5-point favorites. And there's now reports coming out that the Rashee Rice injury isn't actually that bad, which is a good thing for the Chiefs, but they are still a team whose offense has yet to really truly shine this season. They're going to need guys like Xavier Worthy and Travis Kelce to step up. They're going to need their defense to play really well. This is a potential trap game for them, as the Saints are a really good team this season. The Saints are on a 2-game losing streak though, and just in general have started to kind of fall back to expectations. I do still think they have enough left of that surprise start to the season to make this a really close and really good game, but it won't be enough. Give me the Kansas City Chiefs to continue the undefeated season for right now. All right, there you have it. My predictions for week 5 of the NFL season. Like I said at the beginning, subscribe if you're new, be greatly appreciated, and leave a like while you're at it as well. Thank you all for tuning in. I will see you all next time. Have yourselves a damn good one. Peace.